And ask you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Pleasure of the committee.
Second, Madam Chair.
Motion by Mr. DeMonica, second by Mr. Salvatore. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? That motion carries 7-0. Next item is the consent agenda. We have approval of minutes from regular meeting 8/11, an executive session from 8/11, as well as student handbooks for all schools. Pleasure of the committee on the consent agenda.
Madam Chair.
Mr. Fiorello?
Policy is still looking at the student handbooks, and because we're going to be changing the dress code policy later tonight, I don't know if we want to postpone voting on the student handbooks, or we'll pass them and then we'll just adjust them as needed.
Yeah, so my understanding of the student handbooks is we don't vote, they're informational, so we're really not approving them, we're just approving the consent agenda. So we can certainly pull them from the consent agenda and then approve them with the minutes. Would that be the preference if we're going to make some revisions?
I don't have a problem. I'm just
Okay.
asking the question.
Mr. Wood? Okay, so we will remove the student handbooks from the consent agenda, and so that would just leave the regular meeting and the executive session minutes. So pleasure of the committee for the approval of minutes, but not the handbooks. Motion by Mr. Wood, second by Mr. Salvatore. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? The motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is report out of executive session meeting from 8:25. There were no votes taken, and I need a vote to seal the minutes of the executive session.
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Denon. Do I have a second?
Second, Madam Chair.
Second by Mr. Salvatore. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 7-0. Next item, Mr. Mitchell, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to provide an update on the summer construction that's taking place in the 3 schools this summer. We actually have a construction meeting, as you know, every Wednesday. So at our meeting yesterday, one of the things that we were pleased to hear is that we're on target. School is going to be ready to open as planned on Wednesday, August 31st. There is still some work taking place, like things like ceiling tiles. And, you know, one of the other things that we learned is that given the volume of work and given the technology involved in all of the work that's taking place now, so some of the controls are going to be tested and regulated moving forward. And we're anticipating that, you know, some of these vendors will be around until the end of September into October. But the good news is Alex and I actually went to all 3 of the schools, Ashton, McCourt, and North Cumberland Middle School today to check on the progress, and we're going to be ready to go on Wednesday. So really pleased to report that. So there are just a few minor things that remain, and I believe the building inspector will be inspecting all 3 of those buildings tomorrow, and it's my understanding that a certificate of occupancy will be delivered or approved tomorrow, so that is really good news. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about the construction project that we can answer. Okay. Moving forward, one of the things I know that the committee is always interested in is where we are with enrollment, and I know that, you know, probably the best way for us to give you all an idea of how we're doing with registrations is to make a comparison between where we are this year as opposed to where we were at the same exact time last year. You have this information on your drive, but I would like to report that we have, as of this point, 87 more students enrolled in the Cumberland school system than we did last year. There's a net gain at every level. At the elementary level, we have 17 more students enrolled this year than last. At the middle level, we have 18 more students enrolled this year as compared to last year. And at the high school, we have 52 more students this year as opposed to last year. So it's always encouraging to see a positive trend like that. And certainly we would like to believe that the reason that we see such an increase is because people are pleased with the progress that's being made in the district regarding our students' education. So that is good news. I don't know if there's any questions about that. The total gain is 87 students.
Just a quick question. Do we know what communities around the state are experiencing? I know for quite a while there was a mass exodus out of Rhode Island, and many communities have been hit really hard. Are we hearing that enrollment is starting to upswing? Have you heard anything related to that yet?
Well, you know what, Madam Chair, I really don't know the answer to that question. I mean, I do know that there are some districts where there is a significant reduction in enrollment. We know that our friend Dr. Phil Thornton is dealing with that in Warwick. I know that my hometown is dealing with a reduction. But, that's an interesting question. We'll have to find that out.
Thanks.
My sense is, however, that in most places enrollment is declining, but that's just based on what I've heard and what I've read. But we'll check on that.
And of the students that are enrolling, are they predominantly Rhode Island students? Are they Cumberland students coming from other schools, or do we have a snapshot?
I had a conversation with Lori Jenks today. She's the person who does all of the registrations, and she is going to be doing a more specific breakdown. I mean, she's been really busy. We've had several parents enrolling their children today. So this is a busy time of year for her, but one of the things that we talked about, so for example, I know that one question that always comes up, to be honest, is, are there students from charter returning to Cumberland? So the answer to that question is yes. I mean, I don't know number-wise how many, but there is, especially at the high school level, there are students returning from the charters. So we'll do a more specific breakdown when we have a little bit more time. The last item that I just wanted to mention is the school bus routes. This is an interesting topic and one that parents are concerned about, and understandably so. They want to know what time their children are going to be picked up for the start of school and what time they're going to be dropped off at the end of the day. So we've had to make a few adjustments to the schedule that went out. I think we're in pretty good shape now. One of the things, I'm sure that many of the residents in town have noticed that Durham is advertising for bus drivers. There is a public display with the hope of generating some interest in people driving buses. And, we also have a need for bus monitors. So Durham is working on that, and they understand their responsibility in ensuring that students get to school on time every day and are returned home at the end of the day on time every day. So we are having ongoing conversations with them about this, and we're confident that that they will be reliable and hit those times that have been shared with everyone.
Mr. Denham.
Mr. Mitchell, I just want to say, I know when the routes go online, it causes a big stir among parents, and I appreciate your help and Mr. Chandler's help in fixing the problems that occurred over the last couple days. I have a question, though. If someone has a question between now and the start of school, do they contact Durham directly, or do they contact your office or someone else?
Well, I think, I think probably the best thing to do is to contact Mr. Damana's office. No, I'm only kidding about that. No, I think Durham really is, you know, they're a vendor. We pay a significant amount of money for them to provide this service to us. I do think that that's probably a good place to start, but I don't want to dissuade anyone from contacting the superintendent's office. And Mrs. Shabbat, my assistant, as you all know, is really helpful to me. I don't know what I'd do without her when it comes to, because there are a lot of transportation issues that we have to deal with. So, I mean, if parents have a concern, then they need to call where they think they're going to get the support that they need. So, you know, one of the things that we've talked about is, you know, many districts, in fact, all of the districts that I'm aware of, have someone who is responsible for transportation, and I think at some point that is something that, you know, we really need to consider. You know, and maybe making that a part of someone's responsibility so that there is a point person who is an expert in this particular area that could be really helpful to parents. Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. And I'll just say for the record, my rising freshman, the last of the Bolio clan to attend Cumberland schools, was a little surprised when he saw that the bus pickup time was 6:38. So for the record, if we could kind of take some steps toward the changing of the school start time, I know he would appreciate it, and I would too. And if the committee would like to entertain a resolution, I know part of the struggles that we've had over the years is when it comes time to have initiatives, if this is our initiative, maybe a resolution is in order to help move along the efforts and the work. So just keep that in mind. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. Any other questions? Mr. Fiorello?
Mr. Mitchell, I believe I read today that the park scores were released. Have you had a chance to go through everything? Do you have any highlights for us?
Well, the highlight is that all of our scores went up. So that is in every school, so in all 8 of our schools, scores went up. That's good news. Mr. Damana and I have had a conversation about sharing more specifically the results of Cumberland students' performance on park, and I had a brief conversation with Mrs. Bolio about when we would do a presentation for the committee, and we're going to need some time to really dig in. We want to provide some meaningful information to all of you on how our students are performing. So we were thinking that it's going to take at least 2 or 3 weeks to really dig into the data. So we were thinking perhaps the second meeting in September would be a good time for us to present that information to you.
Very good. Moving forward, we have reports of standing committees, payment of bills. Mr. Demotica.
Madam Chair, there were no payment of bills tonight.
Very good. And moving on.
And moving on, Finance did meet tonight upstairs. We had a couple of items on the agenda. The first is Sedesco Food Services came in today. They're off and running. They're getting ready to start the new year. One thing we did talk with Sedesco about was Lifespan is starting a school that's part of Bradley Hospital at Fatima Drive. So they've asked the Cumberland School District to provide the breakfast and lunch for those approximately 50 kids. It's a K through 5 school. We'll be getting the reimbursement. It'll be sort of a catering bill that they'll get and that they'll pay us. So we just told them to go ahead and do it. For all intents and purposes, we make money off the deal. So we'll see what happens there. And the other we talked to them about the amount of money that we didn't collect in bad debt. It was about $15,000. One of the charter schools owes some money as well. They're going to get us some documentation in regards to that. So that was the Sedesco report. They're up and running. They're getting ready to go into North Cumberland and McCourt to go clean up and get those schools ready, considering the cafeteria's got new floors. The other thing on our agenda tonight was the CTA resolution and contract that we discussed. Mr. Pignano handed out a sheet that talked about how we would pay for it the first year, and there was discussion how they would pay for it the second year. So that'll come up later on. It was just recommended that we just send it to the full committee, a 3-0 vote. And that was it.
Very good. Any questions? And we have policy and procedure. Mr. Fiorello.
Yes, policy and procedures did meet on Tuesday night where we finalized language on the student dress policy as well as the personnel dress policy. I believe that we made a good stride forward, and I look forward to the reading of the policies and the vote later on. Mr. Mitchell also proposed that we put on a future agenda discussion about a new policy about every August or every summer we receive requests from parents for placement in schools other than their neighborhood school for whatever reason. But I think it's gotten to be, that number's increased greatly over the last couple of years. And so it's time to really create a policy structuring how that will be handled. So we'll probably be doing that sometime in the next couple of months.
Thank you. And Mrs. Teal will resume achievement in communications once school gets rolling, I assume. So no meetings in the summer. And budget task force update, we probably should take this off the agenda. But we have talked about having them come and share some of they had a lot more information that they wanted to share with us. So maybe we can reach out again. Next item on the agenda is comments from the public. Anyone here wish to speak this evening during public comments? Yes? You can come right up to the microphone. And you just want to make sure we can hear because it's really loud up here. Hold on.
Okay. You're still not working. Can you hear me?
I can,
Okay.
yes, thank you.
So I don't know if the dress code will be talked at a later point, but we're both represented as a student government, and we wanted to take an opportunity to really thank you guys for giving us the chance to weigh in on the dress code and have that opportunity and allow the student voice to be heard. So.
Very good, thank you. Student government. Yeah, we have this giant fan here, so it's hard for some of us to hear. Mr. Fiorello?
Yeah, I just want to say it was a pleasure working with student government. They brought a lot to the table. They were, if these are the people that are going to be running our town in the future, I plan on living here a long time then. So it was a good experience for all of us, I think.
Fear all of in District 1.
Let's hope so.
Okay, so we now have a public hearing. We have reading of policies, and are both of these covered, Mr. Fiorello? Yes. So what we have is, this is a public hearing, and this is an opportunity to get up and speak for or against the policies that are listed here on the agenda. First of which is G3, personnel dress code, as well as J20 student dress code. And we've already had some public testimony, but if you want to add to it, you can always come back up. And is there anyone else who wishes to provide some testimony related to the policies? Mrs. Gomes. Just make sure the microphone's on. Nope.
No.
I think it's up top. The green light's on. It must be good.
Yes?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Hi. My name is Jeannie Gomes. I am from District 1. I'm a BF Norton parent, and I'm a court parent. Good evening to the members of the school committee, Mr. Mitchell and Mr. Damana. I was very pleased that the dress code policy has come up for review and is looking at being changed. I was able to attend the first subcommittee meeting where it was addressed, and I left that meeting feeling hopeful that we would move away from a dress code that unfairly targets girls and subjects them to undue embarrassment and shame for dressing as girls. I was relieved when I heard Mr. Mitchell state in that meeting that he did not want staff members to be measuring hem lengths or strap widths. Unfortunately, I was not able to attend the next 2 meetings of discussions, and while I was kept informed by friends in attendance, I was still confident that we would end up with a reasonable working dress code. However, I am disappointed in some of the language contained in the version that the subcommittee passed and will be presenting to the full committee for approval tonight. Specifically, my concern is with the language that calls for shorts and dresses and skirts to be mid-thigh and fingertip, and for straps to be 3 fingers wide. This language is still targeting girls and the clothes that are available to them. We all know that every body is a different shape. Some girls have shorter legs, and what is mid-thigh and fingertip on one will appear to be shorter on a girl with longer legs, but would still be appropriate coverage on her. I've been told not to worry, that the policy applies to boys too. However, I would ask you to consider the styles of clothes that are sold. Popular short styles for boys are basketball styles and cargo shorts, both of which come to the knee. Boys don't wear the styles from the 1970s, so this mid-thigh requirement is still going to target girls. Popular shorts and dresses styles for girls are shorter than mid-thigh, but still look perfectly appropriate on students. I've also been told that this is the language that the girls who were represented the student government wanted. I think it is good that the students were involved and were allowed to have a voice in the discussion. Though I respectfully ask, what about the other girls currently in school or who will come after who don't want such restrictive language? If the policy simply stated shorts and dresses and skirts must cover the buttocks, then this allows the girls to dress in clothes that they are comfortable in, that their parents have purchased for them. Girls are not being forced to wear clothes shorter than they are comfortable in, but are not going to be singled out and shamed for wearing clothes while being a girl. At the first meeting that I was able to attend, it got very uncomfortable when I brought up that dress codes that target girls, that shame them for dressing like girls, perpetuate victim blaming and rape culture. However, we cannot continue to imply that a girl is responsible for someone else's thoughts or actions based on what she wears. We cannot continue to imply that all boys are not to be trusted with their thoughts and actions because of what a girl is wearing. We cannot continue to silently teach our students that a girl's education is of less value when she is pulled from a classroom because she's wearing a shirt with thin straps or a skirt that seems short. Yet this is the message that is being sent. The shame and embarrassment that is put on that girl when she's pulled from out of class is unnecessary, and the loss of her class time and instruction is unacceptable. What we can do is to teach our children to be respectful of others no matter how they are dressed. We can teach our children about consent and that a bare shoulder or thigh is not an invitation for comment or action. We can teach our children to be proud of themselves and their bodies no matter their shapes. We can teach our children that body shaming is wrong. How a girl dresses is not an indication of her intelligence, and it is not her responsibility to dress for anyone's comfort other than her own. With regards to the arguments that adults have dress codes that they have to comply with at work, yes, they do. However, most of those allowed outfits would not be allowed in school. And also, every place of work is different, and when our now students encounter them, they'll still know how to comply and how to pay attention to rules. I ask you to please consider the language of the new policy. I recognize that it is not easy to come up with something that will please every interested party. However, it is easy to remove unfair language and unreasonable language. Bear in mind that someone may be fine with something that is shorter on their child, someone else may prefer something longer, and that's all okay. Keeping it simple, clothing and accessories that do not promote drugs or alcohol, clothing and accessories that will not injure anyone, clothing that is not see-through and covers the chest and the buttocks. Again, I thank you for working to change the policy for the best interests of all of our children, and thank you for this consideration in advance of a final vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to speak with regard to either policy, G3 or J20? Yes, ma'am.
The individuals that was at the subcommittee meeting the other day, and we did have take a long time to hash out the actual wording because we know it's very difficult in order to word something with such importance like this. One of the things that we found with the way we did word it, using the fingertips as a reference point and the 3 fingers of particularly the wearer of the clothing and not just an individual such as the deans that is responsible for enforcing it. A huge piece that we included that for is the fact that it needs to be able to be enforced within the schools, so that's something that people can understand and something that's easy to recognize. So if I put my finger down, you can see that my skirt goes past my fingertips. So it allows the deans to and the principals and any other individuals that need to enforce it more easily without argument. And additionally, we did discuss how the dress code is usually implemented, and there have been issues in the past that were brought up at the subcommittee meeting, and we all, to my understanding, agreed that it would be changed a little bit. Mr. Tenrera would not be making announcements in the morning, at least in the high school, that dress code checks needed to be happening. Teachers would be able to take students aside very subtly and mention, like, oh, if you're not meeting the dress code, to send them down to the office. If a girl or a boy was not meeting the dress code and they needed new clothing from their parent, they would be able to go down to student management or have some sort of in-school suspension where they were able to continue doing their work so they weren't taking out of their education, because obviously as a woman I am a huge proponent for being in there and being in your getting your education and not being removed of that because of your clothing. I don't think what we have suggested helps any sort of rape culture like that, as I am aware of how prevalent that's become in the society. I think there does need to be something solidified that we can enforce, and that's why we chose what we did choose. We're all familiar with it from middle school. It was something that was reasonable. Girls and boys' bodies are all different. They're changing when they get to high school more so than middle school. So having a policy that does require you to cover a little more than something such as covering the buttocks is something that we felt was necessary.
Thank you. Anyone else? So we will call the public hearing closed at 7:58 and move on to old business. Mr. Fiorello, do you want to take these two agenda items here?
Sure. The first, of course, is G3, personnel dress code. Again, one of the main items here was allowing teachers to wear sleeveless shirts or sleeveless dresses. That was one of the big things that they had hoped for. We also clarified some language regarding the dreaded flip-flop and a couple small issues that the teachers were very much on board with. So I would make a motion to pass G3, the personnel dress code.
Mr. Fiorello moves to approve G3 personnel dress code as amended. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries 7-0. Thank you, Mr. Fiorello.
And J20, the student dress code, as we already discussed. A lot of the language between the personnel dress code and the student dress code are actually very similar. They're very similar documents. The students, of course, have a little more restriction on it just because they are students. They're not adults yet. So we just wanted to clarify a few different rules. But I believe this is a great step in the right direction, and we made it very gender neutral as much as, as possible. And I support it, and I would make a motion to accept J20, the student dress code.
Mr. Fiorello moves passage of the amended J20 student dress code. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Wood. Mr. Salvatore.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, I am in support of this policy, but I do agree with Mrs. Gomes to a certain degree that I think it could be tweaked a little bit more. And Mrs. Gomes, as I am going to vote for this policy, this is still something that we can bring back to policy at any time if there is a concern. So I think it is a policy that is still revolving, that still needs to be ironed out a little bit more. So, and I appreciate you showing up at the meeting and for the students as well. Thank you.
Mr. Denon.
I just wanted to say the discussions we had were spirited and interesting. They were always school-like, though. I want to underscore that. I think in thinking about the policy and some of the concerns that Ms. Gomes raised tonight, I think there's a spectrum of bad policy and perfect policy. And I think what we're doing with this is we're moving it a little closer to make it better. It's not perfect. I think we all recognize that. So, Mr. Salvatore, I agree with you. We could always come back and make changes to this. I support it as well.
Very good. Anyone else? Mr. DeMonica.
Madam Chair, one of the emails tree discussions that came about were that female students were being judged by male teachers. Is there anything in this policy that resolves that issue?
Mr. Fiorello?
Nothing actually specifically in the policy, but what we have done is the administration, central administration, will be creating new procedures around dress codes. And if a female student, or a male student, I guess, would feel more comfortable with a female teacher, they could absolutely have the female teacher check their clothing. So, I don't know if Mr. Mitchell wants to expand on that at all.
Mrs. Teal, then Mr. Mitchell.
I guess when I read the policy, and what's nice about the policy is students are responsible for their own enforcement because they can go like this and they can go like this. So I don't think you really are going to have any more issues that way, and that's nicely written. Thank you.
Just a couple of things that I think are important. One of the things that we talked a lot about is the fact that, dress code is a very personal issue, and what is appropriate for me may not be appropriate for someone else. So that was a part of our conversation. So I think we tried to be sensitive to both ends of the spectrum there. I appreciate the fact that students were actively involved. They were mature, responsible, and they also agreed to be a part of the implementation of this new policy. In fact, I believe it was Lexi. We had a conversation with Mr. Tenrero this week, and one of the things we talked about was, how important it was for students to know, that is high school students to know that their student government leaders were a part of the conversation. And Lexi suggested that during class meetings at the beginning of the school year, that student government representatives let their peers know that they were a part of the process and that they needed to follow the policy. The only other thing that I wanted to mention was something that you mentioned. What's that? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's exactly it. I know that one of the things that came up a few times, and understandably so, is like who does the checks. So if I'm a female, and there's maybe some concern with, the way that I'm dressed, who would argue that a female would not be a little uncomfortable by having a male or males make a decision about whether or not something is appropriate or not? So we, as part of our conversation with Mr. Tenrero, he gets that and understands that if there are any issues involving a female, that a female faculty member or a female adult has to be a part of that conversation with the student, because we don't want anybody to feel they're going to be uncomfortable to begin with because what they're wearing is being challenged, but we don't want it to be any more uncomfortable than this situation already is. So we need to be sensitive to those things, and I think that was, again, one of the things that came through loudly and clearly on behalf of the students, and one that is being addressed. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell. So we have a motion and a second on the student dress code policy. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Those opposed? And that motion carries 7-0. Next item on the agenda is discussion and/or vote to rescind teacher non-renewal recommendations. Mrs. Fogel. The green light's on.
Good evening.
Yes.
I don't know if it's working. Anyway, we've recommended 4 teacher non-renewals that I would ask that you support.
Thank you. Pleasure of the committee on the rescission of the teacher non-renewals.
I'll make a motion to accept Mrs. Vogel's recommendation to rescind the non-renewals.
Motion by Mr. Fiorello, second by Mr. Salvatore and Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item on the agenda is discussion and/or vote to approve Resolution SCR 2016-12, Cumberland Teachers Association and Cumberland School Committee Collective Bargaining Agreement 2006 to 2018. Mr. DeMonica, this was in your
Madam Chair, was discussed at length today upstairs. Mr. Prignano has provided a resolution and a copy of the fiscal note that comes with it. It was in the Google Drive for fiscal. One item that needs to be changed is Mr. Prignano mentioned right at the very top there was under Rhode Island General Laws 45.522. It's actually Rhode Island General Laws 16.221.6. So that was a correction there. He provided documentation for us to show how we would pay for the contract for the first year with some changes that are projected to happen over the current school year with vocational tuitions, healthcare administration fees, charter tuitions, and breakage, totaling an amount of $260,000. So the first year of the contract, we need approximately $259,000 or $260,000. The second year of the contract, we would be dealing with the town and state aid. We have another $1 million coming in state aid, and then we'd be asking for the town to make up any difference in our normal budget, which we would normally do anyways. So we had that discussion tonight. So to move this along so we can have some spirited discussion, I make a motion that we pass SCR 2016-12 School Committee, powering the Cumberland School Committee to approve a 2-year proposed contract from September 1st, 2016 through August 31st, 2018 with the Cumberland Teachers Association. So I would make that motion.
Mr. DeMonica moves passage of the resolution. Do I have a second?
Madam Chair, I'll second for discussion.
Second by Mr. Salvatore.
Madam Chair,
Yes, sir.
as I'm going to vote yes for this contract, but I have to say I do have concerns about the funding, but I did feel better tonight speaking to administration. And one of the reasons, Madam Chair, is because I still feel like we have our own budget shortfalls as it relates to the children within this district. And I must say that I do feel that the union administration, not the teachers, Madam Chair, the union administrations are coming across to me as a little bit of narrowing and self-seeking. But I am going to vote yes in this contract, so thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Salvatore. Any further comments, Mr. DeMonica?
Madam Chair, at the last meeting, I voted no against the tentative agreement because I wasn't sure about the funding. I'm still not sure about the funding, but when I read the Valley Breeze the other day, when they talked about the DPW getting the contract 3, 2, and 2, the town, the next 2 years, they've got to figure out where they're going to get the money as well. And because of that, I'm going to support this contract because we're going to be in the same boat they are. We need to find the money to pay for it. So I am going to move forward on it.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments? Mr. Denon?
One of the things we talked a lot about is how we're going to fund these 2 years. And in year one, we talked about charter tuitions. I just wanted to make it clear that we're expecting to send 21 fewer students to charter schools than we had originally planned for. So that's how we're able to, we had budgeted for 21 more students. So we're able to free up $158,000. I had some questions about that. And I know some people were like, you're not going to pay the whole bill. Any charter student who goes to who chooses a charter school will have their full bill paid. We're not holding anything back. It's more just a change in the budget.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, to
Mr. DeMonica?
clarify that for the public, when Mr. Prignano and the superintendent give us our budget projections for the year, we take the number from RIDE in regards to how we're going to figure out the what we have to set aside for charter school tuitions. And the numbers that RIDE give us are not always correct. And Mr. Prignano is quite sure that our numbers going forward will be about 21 students less going to the charter school. Well, we base our original number off RIDE's number.
Mr. Denon?
We actually base both of them off RIDE's projections. RIDE's projections have changed.
So their numbers are aspirational?
Yes.
Thank you. That made me feel better. Okay, anyone else? Now, the contracts are never easy, especially when there's, dollars that are going to cost the district and the community. And for a long time, we've had concession-based bargaining, and that's a whole different animal than situations where the economy is getting better. And while we still have concessions, because it does change the healthcare plan, it is kind of a different environment now. I think the agreements we've had in the past have included salary freezes and step freezes, and this is more in line with, to some extent, a traditional contract. So thank you to the administration. These are never easy. And thank you to the bargaining unit for their collaboration with us. We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries 7-0. Thank you, everyone. Next item on the agenda is Missing School Matters, Superintendent's Call to Action Initiative. Mr. Mitchell.
Madam Chair, this is a national initiative, and the whole premise behind this movement is the importance of students attending school every day. I don't think anyone would argue the fact that students who attend school every day are successful academically, and there is concern that in many cities and towns and states across America that students are missing too much school. In fact, there was some national report that came out recently expressing significant concern about that. So this is a national initiative, and I actually received an email calling for superintendent's call to action. Every state in the country has received this information and an opportunity for school districts to join in this mission. And again, the goal is to increase student attendance. And I must say, I was really impressed with the number of school districts in Rhode Island that are participating in this. And I think next to California, which has, I think that may even be the birthplace of this initiative, several of our school districts are participating in this. It is, there is a website that provides multiple resources to school districts, with the goal of improving attendance. And yeah, our attendance is pretty good. I shouldn't say it's pretty good, it's very good. It's in the 90s, so our average daily attendance in every one of our schools is like 93, 95, 96% plus, which means in most places, fewer than 5% of the student population is absent. But I think the most important thing for communities like Cumberland, where students, consistently go to school every day, there is a percentage of the population where attendance is a problem. And we really need to focus our attention on those families that aren't attending school on a regular basis, whose children aren't attending school on a regular basis. This initiative provides resources to help us with those families. And I shared this information and the tools available to principals and teachers and educators, and I've already received positive feedback from some of them about how great these tools are. They're already, Mrs. Serra at BF Norton is already using some of what I shared with them just this week. So this is really important. In order for students to get better, and improve their performance, they gotta come to school every day. And September and it's apropos that we talk about this now, because September is National Student Attendance Month, or something. I forget what the exact name of this monthly initiative is. But so I just wanted to bring to the committee that, attendance is something that we look at all the time, and our biggest concern is how do we get those students who are chronically absent from school in to school on a regular basis? Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Salvatore?
So, Mr. Mitchell, so this Missing School Matters, they have an agenda of advice that they put out, or what is it?
Well, if you have a chance to go to the website, there is a wealth of information there about steps that should be taken to improve student attendance, what districts can do to improve student attendance. It's research-based. They actually have strategies. They have things like posters that that we can download or that we can order, and it doesn't cost us anything. So it really, the website is impressive, and there's a lot of really good information, helpful information there for educators to really bring attention to this issue and improve student attendance.
Madam Chair.
Yes, Mr. Salvatore.
Mr. Mitchell, how are we going to build awareness with the teachers with this program? I take it this is going to target the teachers, so the teachers know how to target the students?
I think like anything else, if we always talk about singleness of purpose, if we make this a priority, like usually when you make something a priority and everyone's locked in and focused on it, it gets better. So our goal will be to raise awareness. Principals will be working with their staff on this issue, and I know that our principals do pay attention to the attendance policy. They enforce the attendance policy, and they're concerned when students are missing too much school. So, I think it's, as a leadership team, one of the things that we need to do is make sure that we keep it on the front burner. That's our responsibility.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Anyone else? Do we know approximately what the percentage of chronic absence is within the district? I don't mean to put you on the
Oh, no. I don't have that percentage off the top of my head, but, I think when we need to dig into the data, we need to identify who those students are, and I think that's the whole point, and that's one of the advantages of having a conversation like this, is because it results in asking those kinds of questions. So I think one of the things that will happen as a result of this is we need to identify those students who are chronically absent and who have a history of being chronically absent, that we focus on those students and take steps to improve their attendance. So, I think we need to get that data, and we're going to dig in.
Guidance can get that information quickly.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think it would be good to bring that forward to Achievement Sub at some point, because there's an absolute correlation between student absences and achievement. And I think it's helpful because we often talk about subgroups of kids, and that most certainly is a subgroup, because they are in that situation where they may be of the other subgroup. They may be low SES, they may be special education students, they may be traditional students, but I think it would be good to have some, front burner conversations around that, because I do think that RIDE reports the percentage of students who are chronically absent. So I'm sure that is some data that we can do a little deeper dive into. And I'll forward along. There's a really good PowerPoint about how impactful good attendance is to individual students. So I'll send that along. It was from Los Angeles Unified School District. Thank you, Mr. Mitchell.
Thank you.
Any other questions? No. Hearing none. Next item on the agenda is personnel recommendations. Mrs. Fogel.
So I have a number of personnel recommendations for you this evening. As we get closer to school, they always ramp up a little. So the first area I'm going to focus on is resignations. So I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the resignations of the following employees. Robert Daniels, special educator at Garvin Memorial, effective 8/17/2016. Christine Kinnear, kindergarten teacher at Cumberland Hill Elementary School, effective 8/22/2016. And Jessica Remillard, secondary math teacher at Cumberland High School, effective 8/16/2016.
Pleasure of the committee on the resignations.
Motion to accept the resignation.
Motion by Mr. Fiorello,
Second.
second by Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? That motion carries.
Next, I have appointments of current employees. So I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the appointment of Linda Ionetta as ELL coordinator for the Cumberland School Department. This would be effective 8/26/2016. She's a current employee, and this would include a $7,000 stipend.
Pleasure of the committee on appointments that are current employees.
Motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Denon, second by Mr. Salvatore. Any further discussion? Mr. Fiorello?
I'd just like to say that Mrs. Ionetta has been a teacher in Cumberland for a long time. She's an integral part of BF Norton, and I'm sure she will excel in her new position.
Great. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 7-0.
Now I have appointments of new employees. So I request the advice and consent of the school committee on the following appointments. Courtney Kamara, grade 2 teacher at BF Norton Elementary School, effective 8/20. Oh, they'll all be effective 8/26/2016. So this is a full-time position. She comes to us at step 1. Leanne Cooper, library media specialist at Ashton Elementary School and Cumberland Hill Elementary School. She comes to us also as full-time in step 7. Valerie Carter, secondary science teacher at Cumberland High School. She's a full-time teacher. She'll be step 4. Erin Norrie, kindergarten teacher at Community Elementary School. She's full-time, step 1. Bethany Turner, secondary English teacher at North Cumberland Middle School. She's a .8, and she will be in at step 4. Audra Williamson, library media specialist at Community Elementary School, full-time, step 1. And Jennifer Windsor, speech language pathologist at Community Elementary School and Cumberland Hill Elementary School, full-time, step 7.
Second.
And lastly, I have the coaches. So do you want me to read I'll read them all for you. So I have I'm requesting the advice and consent on the following high school coaches. John Hoxie, head girls soccer coach. Anthony Silva, head girls soccer coach. Ruth Plant, head girls volleyball coach. Molly MacGyver, assistant girl volleyball coach. Jackie Lapointe, head girls field hockey coach. Pamela Etheridge, assistant field hockey coach. Vanessa Malloy, girls cross country coach. Kevin Hartman, girls tennis coach. Rachel Powell, fall cheerleading coach. Thomas Kenwood, boys cross country coach. Joshua Lima, head football coach. Gabriel Gonzalez, JV football coach. Derek D'Souza, assistant JV football coach. And Jaleel Leonard, assistant JV football coach. And then I have the following middle school appointments. Curtis Grieve, girls soccer coach at McCourt. Dave Williams, girls soccer coach at North Cumberland Middle School. Ron LeClaire, boys soccer coach at North Cumberland Middle School. Brent Scofus, boys soccer coach at North Cumberland Middle School. Scott Winslow, boys soccer coach at McCourt Middle School. Christopher Fernandez, girls and boys cross country at McCourt. And Kerry Carpenter, girls and boys cross country at North Cumberland Middle School.
Madam
Pleasure.
Chair.
Yes, sir.
I know I ask this every time we appoint coaches. Are they all certified and so forth?
All of the high school coaches are, every single coach that I've read to is returning. So all of the high school coaches are certified. A number of the middle school coaches it's not a requirement that middle school coaches are certified, but it is, our AD requests that. So we have one that is still working towards his certification. It's just a paperwork issue, but they will all be certified by the start of middle school season.
Thank you. Madam Chair, I move we approve the
Thank you, Mr. DeMonica. Do I have a second? Second by Mr. Denon. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Those opposed? And that motion carries 7-0.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fogel. Next item is school committee comments, school liaison reports. Any questions, comments, reports? Hearing none. We have no executive session, so I just need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you, Mr. Fiorello. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Salvatore. Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? And that motion carries, and we are adjourned at 8:27. Thank you.